Atomic Minerals is a uranium exploration company focused on underexplored, geologically promising regions in North America. The company has a combined 6 projects, with 4 in the Colorado Plateau and 2 in Canada. We've got CEO Clive Massey here to give us an overview and outlook on the company, as well as going through investor questions. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. Please remember, this is neither recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Clive, how you doing?
Very well, thank you, Martin. It's nice to see you.
Good seeing you. And thanks for joining us. I am a big fan of the uranium space, so I love hearing about new stories. Obviously, U.S. ones have a lot of U.S. assets have some very attractive attributes these days. So I'm looking forward to this. So why don't you take us through the presentation and we can learn a bit more.
Thank you, Martin. That's very kind of you, and I appreciate you setting this up very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we at the present time have 87 million shares out. As you can see, we have some options and some warrants. Those options are held by consultants management of the company at the present time. Some of the warrants are in the money, some of them aren't. They are from previous financings that we have done over the last few years. I feel we've put together a very successful management and technical team. I think it's safe to say that in relation to other junior uranium explorers, we probably have more discoveries under our belt than anyone else that I'm aware of. I have 1 under my belt myself, and Matt Schwab has 3 under his belt. And one of our consultants, Jody Garouche, has a number of discoveries under his belt as well. So as you can see, this is the board of directors. Our advisory team is comprised of Jody Garouche, Tim Hannenberry, Jeff McCleary, and Mark Steen. All these gentlemen are specifically uranium geologists. Interestingly enough, Mark's father, Mark Steen, was Charlie Steen. Charlie discovered the richest uranium mine in the United States. At the time of its discovery, I should say, it was the richest uranium mine ever discovered. This was previous to the discovery of the Athabasca Basin. And that was on a geological feature called a salt wash anticline. And I will come back to the significance of that in a few moments. I think everybody's pretty much aware of the supply and demand issues in the uranium sector at the present time. But one of the things I do like to mention is while the uranium price has been somewhat flat in the last few years, trading primarily between $70 odd and $80 odd. That being said, it did have a high of 109 a year and a half ago or so. There are 450 450 uranium reactors under construction around the world at the present time. When I say under construction, they're in the permitting phase, planning phase, or construction phase. So at some point, there's going to be a significant rise in price, as there was the last time that we had a uranium market. It went from $25 to $140 in just a few months. So getting down to where our projects are, as Martin mentioned, we have 6 projects, one of which is in the just outside the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan. The other is our Mont Laurier project in Quebec. Then we have 4 projects which are on the Colorado Plateau. The significance really of the Colorado Plateau is that it previously has produced 597 million pounds of uranium. And that equates to about 82% of all of the uranium which was produced in Utah. Now, at the high point of production, there were 2,100 mines in production in Utah alone, 17 of which produced 82% of that uranium. This
Clive,
was
sorry, I'm interrupting here. Just on the map here, we were discussing this beforehand. Colorado Plateau is not just in Colorado; it's across 4 states. Can you just give us
yes.
what
I'm
this
sorry,
map? What are
Martin.
we
I will
looking
do
at?
that. The Colorado Plateau is actually uh, 336,000 square miles. And it encompasses a piece of New Mexico, a piece of Arizona, uh, part of Utah, and a portion of Colorado. The blue stars on this map are our projects. The green dots and lettering represent previous areas of production. So as you can see, there was a huge amount of production in the Colorado Plateau, and this is why we focused on it. And we also focused on it because there are a number of salt wash anticlines which geologically are similar to Lisbon Valley. And Lisbon Valley is the only salt wash anticline that's been completely exploited through exploration. And it, at the high point of its production, had 17 mines in production, 3 of which were owned by Mark's father, the Big Buck, the Mavita, and the Standard. The Lisbon Valley anticline also produced the thickest mineable widths and the highest grades of any other areas that were in production in the United States at the time. So this next slide is a map of the location of these salt wash anticlines. And as you can see, there are a number of them. The ones which we have staked are the 10 Mile, the Harts Point, the Dolores, and the Lisbon. The reason we focused on these salt wash anticlines particularly was that some years ago, a geologist called Hans Medeski, who was a colleague of ours, determined that the best way to look for uranium on these salt wash anticlines was to look at oil and gas wells previously drilled by the oil and gas industry. Because not only are these salt wash anticlines excellent for the deposition of uranium, they're also excellent for the deposition of oil and gas. So the oil and gas industry has drilled these anticlines extensively with hundreds and hundreds of holes. So that being said, we started looking at these logs. And of course, all these holes were logged because the oil industry wanted to know where they were in the stratigraphy in relation to where they thought the oil-bearing horizon would be. So the uranium-bearing horizon is significantly shallower. And in fact, the horizon that we're looking for is a sandstone unit, which is called the Mossback member of the Shinle sandstone unit. And that is where 90% of all of the production that came from the Colorado Plateau came from that very same sandstone unit. There are 2 other sandstone units on the Colorado Plateau that produce uranium. However, they do not produce the same kind of widths and the same kind of grades. So moving right along, the project which has had the most exploration conducted on it by us anyway is our Harts Point project. And as I mentioned earlier, the significance of those black dots are that they represent 3 previous holes drilled by the oil and gas industry, which have off-scale radioactive kicks in them, and this is why we staked this specific area. The pink lines on this map signify what we think is the flank of the anticline, and it's the flank of the anticline where you find these uranium deposits. So we've got 3 oil and gas holes that cover more than 3 miles. It would be nice if they were all connected. The likelihood of them being connected is slim. These types of deposits are flat-lying, tabular, amoeba-shaped deposits, which can be very close together, but are often not connected. For example, the Big Buck, the Mavita, and the Standard, which were all multi-million-pound standalone uranium mines, were only separated by a few hundred feet. So we did a joint venture with Kraken Energy on this project. They drilled 2 holes last year and confirmed the presence of uranium. The picks and shovels signify areas of previous production. Now, most of those mines were small, but altogether they produced 280,000 pounds of uranium. So the area is well known for its previous production, and these oil and gas holes definitely point to a much more significant deposit being there. And what we're really looking for is not a deposit, but an entire region or belt, which, as was discovered at the Lisbon Valley Anticline. Here we have some drill core, and these charts on the right-hand side in red are actually, those are the gamma kicks from the holes that Kraken drilled. So again, Kraken established the presence of uranium, but it's yet to be determined whether we were too far up the anticline or too far down the flank of the anticline. While the holes did intersect uranium, they didn't intersect ore grade uranium. Interestingly enough, we've studied a lot of the other deposits on the Colorado Plateau, and what we've discovered is that you can be very, very close with a drill hole and have absolutely no indication of radioactivity in your drill hole. But in this case, at Harts Point, we actually have had radioactivity. So we feel we're very, very close. That project is permitted for 15 holes, and we will be drilling, I would hope, by April anyway. So getting on to the Lisbon Valley project. The Lisbon Valley project is specifically a very interesting project because it is the east side of the Lisbon Valley Anticline. As I mentioned earlier, the west side of Lisbon Valley Anticline, at the height of its production, had 17 mines in operation and produced 82% of all the uranium produced in Utah. So I held this once in another company, Universal Uranium. We didn't have all the data available to us at that time. Subsequently, there were some additional oil and gas holes drilled by Encana. We took a look at these oil and gas holes and found a number of off-scale radioactive kicks in these holes, as well as some just fairly significant radioactive kicks. So the orange holes on this map represent the off-scale radioactivity, and the red signify the multiple off-scale radioactivity. So our claim block is shown here in blue, and the yellow claim block is held by American Atomics, which incidentally, they are paying $23 million over 5 years for what's encompassed in those yellow claim blocks. We paid significantly less as the vendor, Mark, is part of our advisory board. So again, what we're looking for here is an entire ore belt. And all the indications are the uranium is there. We'll be putting this project through the permitting phase very shortly. These are actually logs from holes which were previously drilled on the east side of the Lisbon Valley Anticline. The dark areas on these graphs are the areas of off-scale radioactivity. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of them. These holes are within the boundaries of our property. The other project we have in our portfolio at the moment is the 10 Mile. The 10 Mile is located north of Moab. I should have mentioned something earlier. My apologies. All of our projects are within 45 to 75 miles of the White Mesa Uranium Mill, which is owned by Uranium Energy and is currently producing uranium. So in terms of their geographic locations, they're also located very well in terms of infrastructure. There's water, power, all the things you would need to run this kind of a mining operation. And with the mill nearby, it makes trucking costs significantly reduced. So this project as well was staked on the basis of historical oil and gas holes having off-scale radioactivity. This project will be going through the permitting phase very shortly as well. And we're currently looking for a joint venture partner for this project. Here are these are logs from previous drill holes, and you can see the radioactivity in these holes is significant. So hopefully we will find a joint venture partner for them soon, and we'll be able to advance the project. The other project we have on the Colorado Plateau is actually just over the border from Utah in Colorado. And it's an area of previous production. The Dolores anticline is bisected by the San Juan Dolores River. The Bull Snake mine was in production during the 1950s and 60s. You can see the favorable sandstone unit sticking right out of the cliff, and it is in fact radioactive where it's bisected by the San Juan Dolores River. Again, on our claim block, we have a number of oil and gas holes which are very, very close to us. We're going to increase our number of claims here. We're also looking for a joint venture partner for this project as well. And here are some of the oil and gas holes from the Dolores project. And you can see, again, we've got significant off-scale radioactivity in a couple of these, well, three of these holes anyway, and high radioactivity readings in some of the others. So that covers our projects which are in the U.S. on the Colorado Plateau. We also have the Moisey Lake project, which is located just outside the Athabasca Basin. It's a very interesting project. It encompasses 630,000 pounds at the present time. It's open at surface in two directions. Historically, there's been a wide range of work conducted on it by a number of operators, and it's our intent to fly an aeromag survey in the not too distant future over this project, give us a better idea of where we might want to lay down some collards for drilling. Here's another view of the project. Our claims blocks are shown here in purple. And as you can see, they are either on strike or close to a number of other projects. This is actually our Mount Laurier project, which is in Quebec. This is a pegmatite project, and we would be looking for a joint venture partner for this project as well. And again, this has had a number of operators that have conducted previous work on it. And it's an interesting project, but being a pegmatite, it's not really in our bailiwick. We're really focusing on these sandstone hosted deposits. So in terms of, in my view, what makes the company interesting is we've got an experienced board of directors and management team, which I will come back to in a moment. We've got a highly skilled technical team. On this slide, it says that our market cap is 4 million. Our market cap is actually 9 million. But if you compare it to anybody else on this slide, we're highly undervalued in my view. Going back to my comments about our management and technical team, I had a very similar management team and technical team for my previous uranium company, which was Universal Uranium. And I believe that should we make a discovery, the fastest path to profits for our shareholders is through the sale of an asset, not down the long and painful road of production. So, for example, in my last uranium company, we discovered the two-time zone, which was in the Central Labrador mineral belt. We had a 51% interest in that project, which we purchased for $1 million. It was the only new discovery made in the last uranium run-up, and we structured a deal to sell our 51% interest back to our joint venture partner for 150 times our investment. So that's $150 million. So my point of that story is we know how to make discoveries and we know what to do with them once they've been made. So, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much concludes my my presentation and an overview of our projects. That's a very high-level overview that I intentionally left out a number of technical points and so on, just to keep it short, concise, and to the point. But I'm happy to answer any questions for anybody if you have questions.
Clive, thank you very much. I appreciate your conciseness. The Colorado Plateau seems quite intriguing to me, just so much activity there. The four projects that you picked up there, Did you, I know, were those like the only four left when you went looking around there, or did you have a choice of all sorts? And why did you pick those ones specifically? Did you have a big choice, or what attributes about them
So
gave you the most positivity?
when we first started looking in this area, we were looking specifically for salt wash anticlines, and so none of this area was staked. So all the staking was based on our review of all those oil and gas holes that I was talking about earlier. So looking at the radioactive kicks in those oil and gas holes and where they were located on these salt wash anticlines determined where we laid down all our claim blocks.
Did you stake all of the projects, or did you purchase any of the? Well, I guess one is from an advisor or a director of your firm, but were the other ones just staked and sort of created yourselves?
Yes, we did not buy any of these projects. We acquired them all through staking ourselves. And the Lisbon Valley East project, um, Mark and his partner staked that project based on work that was done by our technical team. In other words, it was our technical team that identified the opportunity there. At the time, we didn't have the money to stake it. So Mark assembled a consortium of gentlemen. They staked it. And as I mentioned earlier, sold two-thirds of it to American Atomics. And we got a third of the project. Uh, and really, we got them for what our research costs were.
When did you do that staking and acquiring them? And has activity in the on the Colorado Plateau increased over the last while, given whatever the geo political world that we're in right
Environment.
now?
So I guess the first project which we acquired was the Harts Point project. And we staked that originally uh, approximately 3.5 years ago. The Dolores I actually held previously in Universal Uranium, so we were, completely aware of that project. And when we realized it was not staked, we staked it. And then again, we were able to find oil logs which covered the 10 mile and staked that ground based on what we found in those logs. And the interest in the Colorado Plateau has increased. If I go back to the 10 mile slide, for example, so one might ask. So our claim blocks obviously are highlighted here in white, or outlined in white, I should say. But in amongst those claim blocks, there are a couple of other companies which hold claim blocks there as well. And specifically in Lisbon Valley, there's a lot of other ground which is held by um, a variety of other uranium companies, including UR Energy and a number of others. And there's even some production going on in the LaSalle area, which is just to the northeast of Lisbon Valley. There's some small production going on there, which is UR Energy. They've got a contract miner, and they're shipping ore currently to the White Mesa Mill at Blanding, which they own as well.
You've raised some money recently. Can you
We
just
have.
so can you just discuss that and discuss your use of proceeds, where you expect to be spending, when and where, and doing exactly what with ththose funds?
Well, the first expenditures this year will be for the Aeromag at Moisey Lake. Then we will be following up with permitting at Lisbon Valley, 10 Mile, and the Dolores. As I mentioned, Harts Point is actually permitted for 15 holes. So we're hoping to be on the ground drilling there by March. So that's our go forward plan at the moment, seeing us out to March.
And when I believe you said apply for permitting in March, and
We'll be applying for permitting much sooner than March. It's probably March or April, I think we'll be able to get on the ground and conduct some further drilling.
Okay, so then you would do some drilling at that point. Okay, and is this patented land, or what kind of land are we working on here?
This is all BLM,
Okay.
federal land. And what's interesting is that, well, I think it's interesting anyway. When we acquired permits originally to drill Harts Point, um, the Biden administration was in power, and it was a very, very, very arduous, complicated process. Subsequently, there's been a house cleaning at the BLM, and
Yeah.
so to obtain permits. So, for example, we set out to permit 21 holes at Harts Point. We ended up being permitted for 2 holes. So most recently, after the house cleaning and the Trump administration has come to power, we wanted to permit 15 holes, and we got permitted. We got 15 holes permitted. We got them permitted in about 3 months. So the process has become significantly less arduous and much more streamlined. The other thing that's happened both in Colorado and Utah is when that house cleaning took place, they changed the heads of the BLM in both Utah and Colorado. So that's made it easier. So the philosophy at the BLM has been changed significantly from, what was infiltrated badly by tree huggers, in my view, is now run by people who have the interests of the state uh, in their interests.
And your focus with those funds is going to be in the Colorado Plateau, correct? Are you putting much effort into,
We,
obviously, the
we,
pegmatite one, you're trying to find a partner for, but the near Athabasca one, is there going to be much effort put on that this year?
Moisey, we're gonna fly an aeromag survey there to see if we can further clarify where the further targets might be.
Your strategy of bringing forth projects and then you're not planning on developing themselves, but selling them off. What point of development do you feel? Obviously, it depends at the time of the market and so forth, but at what stage do you figure it's de-risked enough where you sort of get the biggest bang for your buck? Drilling an extra hole or doing an extra report won't really add that much value to the asset price, call it. How far do you think you typically would have to explore and develop them before you can get a good sale price?
Martin, I've been in the industry for 35 years, and I've seen over the years a number of transactions, and they're all different. I've seen things that have been sold for, you know, millions and millions of dollars that had one drill hole, and other things that had 90 drill holes that were
Yeah.
eventually sold. So there isn't really a definitive answer. So, for example, you take the discovery that we made in the Central Labrador Mineral Belt. I mean, we were essentially offered 150 million bucks on one hole. It
It all
all depends
depends.
on who the buyer is, what the uranium price is, what the geograph. There's a lot of variables, so there isn't necessarily a definitive answer. But I can tell you that I have been involved in things that have gone into production. I was involved just by coincidence with the Lisbon Valley Copper Mine from the time of discovery to the process of the first copper cathode was 10 years. And we had environmental issues, we had copper price related issues, and it was nothing less than total brain damage. So that's why I say the fastest path to profits for investors is through the sale of an asset, not down the long and painful road of production. There's a large number of other uranium companies in the US, and I think we could be a target for any of those companies or any of the international companies.
Are there any opera or companies within the region, let's say the Colorado Plateau itself, who that would like that seems to be an obvious fit for? Obviously, it could be anyone wanting to get a footprint in there, but are there any obvious neighbors you have that that sort of spring to mind up front?
I think Uranium Energy Corp would be a natural fit.
And some questions from the audience. We've discussed it a bit, but to clarify it, when are you expecting drill permits for 10 Mile and Dolores?
As we have not actually filed the permits yet, I would expect them uh, within a 2 to 3 month time frame from the time that we file them. And I would think that we would be filing them in the next few weeks.
With the Tony M mine coming into production in 2026 and the uranium being shipped to the Misha mill, does the mill have enough production capacity to handle increased uranium ore supply from Atomic's potential increase to potential production?
Well, I'm not sure about the Misha mill. We would be sending ore to the White Mesa mill at Blanding. And that mill was so overbuilt. Um, I think if we made a 100 million pound discovery at all of our properties, that White Mesa mill would be able to manage it. It is
Okay.
just an enormous operation.
How is your relationship with the locals in the area, and are there specific local groups that are most maybe potentially or largely impacted or have loud voices, so to speak?
So there is an environmental group that operates, all through the Southwest U.S. But in terms of economic opportunity, the town of Monticello and the town of Moab are the two closest towns. Um, I've been involved in town hall meetings previously in both towns, and the general feeling is that uranium mines would be a good thing in the area. They would create opportunity, prosperity, and jobs. Now, the environmental movements don't actually have any real economic value to offer these areas. So the potential employment pool has nothing but disdain for these environmental groups. So we've got a very favorable geopolitical environment here as well.
And I would think it's a tough situation for environmentalist types to be in, where uranium is such an incredibly clean and historically actually very like low carbon, very safe, except for a few bad anomalies where oh, if you don't let the uranium go, then you got to burn more coal, and so it's they really have to look at it in terms of trade-offs. And my personal balancing of it at uranium and nuclear makes a whole lot of sense. So,
Yeah, and the environmentalists don't really have a leg to stand on. They're what they're basing their argument on is uranium contamination of the area. But what's transpired, and I know this because of the environmental studies and so on that we had to do with the Lisbon Valley copper mine. At that time, the environmentalists, their argument was that it was going to contaminate the water table. Well, there's so much uranium in the area that the water table is already completely contaminated with uranium. In fact, in that area, if you take a Geiger counter and put it in the Colorado River after a heavy rainstorm, it'll go off the charts because so much radioactive sediment has been flushed into the river. It's
yeah.
incredible.
With historical drilling in Lisbon Valley not having a public history or showing gamma readings publicly, what is your expectations for gamma readings on the drilling program from Harts Point? And what do you consider a high reading at Lisbon Valley in comparison to the Athabasca?
Off-scale radioactivity is 700 counts per second.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're in the Athabasca or whether you're at Harts Point or at Lisbon Valley. Off-scale radioactivity is off-scale radioactivity. So, and then back to the second part of the question about the logs.
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't explain is that there are two host minerals for uranium. One is uraninite, the other is carnotite. These would be uraninite hosted deposits. Uraninite is almost a black tar like material that is very, if you know what uraninite looks like, if you're a uranium geologist, it's very easily identified. So if we were to intersect a uraninite ore body, we would know instantaneously. For example, Mark's father, Charlie, who was an oil and gas engineer, and that's how he adapted his knowledge of the oil and gas industry to find these salt wash anticlines. When he drilled his first drill hole, he didn't realize that he had uraninite. He didn't know what he had because uraninite had never been discovered in the United States. At that time, all of the uranium ore bodies were carnotite hosted deposits. So, as I say, when we get into it, we will know immediately.
Are you using any AI tools or software technology to help triangulate or locate in on higher targets with higher relevancy?
We're not. The most sophisticated technology to date for locating the Mossback member of the Shinle is by looking at these drill hole logs provided by the oil and gas industry. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
In terms of, there has been so much production in the area. What were typical or common range of grades of uranium that they found there? And how does this compare, let's say, to the Athabasca or, I don't know, maybe another region that is
Well,
relevant?
compared to the Athabasca, they are, it's relatively low grade. So, for
Athabasca is the
example,
highest grade in the world.
it's
So
the
yeah.
highest grade in the world. But the grades are very, very easily mineable grades. So, for example, the Rio mine, which was at the very north end of Lisbon Valley, sorry, the Lisbon Valley mine, which was operated by Rio Algam, they extracted 22 million pounds at an average grade of 0.21 from an elevation of 2550. Now, at Mavita, for example, Mavita had grades up to 0.41. So Mavita had the highest grades and the thickest mineable widths, as did the Big Buck and the Standard. Some of the other mines, like the Ike Nixon, they had grades of 0.31. The grades vary significantly up and down the length of the entire ore belt.
But it sounds like between point 0.2 and point 0.4 is kind of
Yeah, but
a reasonable bracket
certainly
of.
certainly economical grades. Maybe not at this uranium price, but certainly at the $100 mark, they starts to make more sense.
And there's a question here from the audience regarding warrants. Is there any kind of an overhang or any warrants sort of coming up soon?
There are actually some warrants that are in the money at the moment, and they're trickling in.
Okay. All right. How long is there X date? When do they have to be exercised or not?
I would have to go back to that slide and have a look. I can't
All right.
remember off the top of my head, which we can very
Oops.
easily do that.
Uh, oh yeah, in the fall of winter of 26, a bunch are
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. So yeah, most of them are in the fall. So
Yeah. All right. We've covered a lot here, Clive. I have no further questions, nor does the audience. Is there anything else you'd like to address that we maybe missed, or any final comments before we wrap it up?
well, I would just like to reiterate the point that there are numerous junior uranium exploration companies operating at the moment. Um, I think that we have a very good management team and a spectacular technical team. And to my knowledge, there aren't any other juniors that have as many uranium discoveries as we do cumulatively under our belt. And compared to a number of others, we've got a highly undervalued market cap. So I think it's something that, as investment opportunity, people should consider very seriously.
All right. And what I always like in a story is what kind of news flow or catalysts are coming up. And it looks like the first half of this year could be or should be quite busy for you guys. So there should be a
Yes,
lot of news to base things off of.
yeah, we should have a nice steady ongoing flow of news. Excuse me.
All right, Clive, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Martin. Thank you.